So, Vinny, a 3-0 win for Manchester City against Everton. Not a game that will live long in the memory, as routine as you will get for City.
Yeah, City were comfortable. He won it in effectively second gear. Didn't have to break a sweat really. Goalkeeper touched the ball 3 or 4 times. I think it says everything. I think it more says a lot about Everton and where Everton are as a club than City. City won't have taken a lot out of them ahead of the Wednesday game against Paris Saint-Germain. Just really comfortable. Pep was able to rest people if he needed. Just a straightforward win. Now some great goals as well. To be fair, the first goal is brilliant. Raheem Sterling's movement is excellent. But Cancelo is just one hell of a footballer and a brilliant pass outside the boot. And ultimately they've run out 3-0. And if they needed more goals, they would have got them.
City aren't as scintillating as they were 3-4 years ago when they were winning the title and scoring huge amount of goals. But they had Aguero, I felt, at the end of it, that had that bit of X factor, and David Silva was there as well. Are we still taking that play for granted, though? Because it feels as though that's just another match where Manchester City have 80% possession. Like, how difficult is it to play that well?
Yeah, I think it's stylistic in terms of, you watched the Liverpool game yesterday, very similar in terms of how comfortable both teams were. But the difference is Liverpool have that real speed and power and that counter-attack from the fullbacks, whether it's Trent getting forward, creating chances. City do a different way where their fullbacks play narrow to allow the wingers 1v1. So it's just different styles. You look at Chelsea, have obviously a different style completely. But there's no doubt that this City team are on a run. They're on a real roll. We all would love to see that great centre forward play for them. But I think if you finish ahead of City this year, I think you win the league. I think they're that good.
Can they survive without the striker? Can they win the league without a striker?
Yeah, well, it depends. It depends on Foden kind of chipping goals. I made the point in commentary. I think Gundogan, Son and Bernardo Silva certainly have to get into the 10, 11, 12 goals in the season. I think that's important for them. So, yes, they can. They have all the different formations where they play with the false nine, whether it's Mahrez chipping in with goals, Sterling. So I think they can. I think they've got the players. But what they have done when they couldn't get Kane, and they didn't just panic buy someone for the sake of it. They've trusted. Palmer was very good today, but he's not ready yet, obviously. But a couple of young players coming through, they'll be patient, and they won't just spend money for the sake of it. So I think it's something they will survive ultimately if they need to.
What they have still is incredible strength at the back. 8 clean sheets now in 13 games. Like, they had an easy ride today. Everton rarely threatened in anywhere, looked like threatening. You mentioned João Cancelo's pass. Can you talk about where he is as a player now, both going forward but also defensively? Because there were questions at times about him defensively last season, as there seems to be about all those sort of more modern fullbacks.
Sure, yeah, they say it about Trent Alexander as well. Look, I think his recovery pace is brilliant, and that gets him out of a lot of problems. Because he's not marauding centre back or full back, it means he's not high up the pitch, so he doesn't have to run back as much or as far a distance. He generally plays from the central area. But I think he's someone who could play central midfield. He could play as a number 6. He's the all-round footballer. His passing range is sensational. He arrives into really difficult areas to mark. And if he needs to get forward and create something in that sort of number 10 position, he can do that as well. So he is the ultimate fullback. He is that modern day fullback. He's not, as I said, he's not someone who's going to overlap 5 and 6 and 7 times, but he'll hurt you from a deeper area and allow your wingers stay wide, and ultimately that's City's play. It looks like sometimes City are playing off a playbook. You nearly know what's going to happen next, but it's alright knowing it. You need to be able to stop them, and I think he's key to a lot of the good things they do. They do struggle in the left back position. He's had to play there today. But he looks comfortable playing any position, to be fair to him.
What about Everton then? Barely laid a glove on City today. They are missing, through injury, really the spine of their team, through Yerry Mina, Decore, who was outstanding until his injury, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin in particular. Do those injuries allow Rafa Benitez to get away with setting up a team to play like that today, as negative as they were?
No, I don't think it does. In modern day football, I think fans don't accept that. I think you could lose. You can lose to Man City 3-0, but at least lose and have a couple of shots on goal. If Seamus Coleman maybe had a half a shot, if you want to call it that. Other than that, they had a couple of counter attacks where they lacked a little bit of quality. That's not enough. They've got to do more. I think Benitez is quite lucky to start the season so well, because he's not under. There's not the same noise around that would have been if he hadn't started the season so well in terms of winning the first games. But yeah, there's no doubt they're missing players through injuries, and fans will see that to a point. But today, I mean, if you're an Everton fan, today's depressing. It's depressing.
It's a waste of
watching
time.
that. Waste of time. You're better off losing 4-3, 3-1, 2-1, and at least you've something to cheer about. Today was just non-existent, and it was unfortunately he gets criticised over, but it was Benitez' tactical masterclass in doing nothing, and that's not good. And you want a team to do a bit more about you. So it was just poor from them. So there was nothing about them, and I'd fear for this Everton team that unless they got players back quickly, that they could struggle.
No doubt about the big story of the day and of the weekend. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer finally put out of his misery. He looked so deflated after the game yesterday against Watford, where it seemed inevitable, and then the statement finally came through today. Can he have any issues with the decision the Manchester United board took?
I suppose yes and no. I think we will never know the inner workings of it, but Manchester United, the recruitment and the management of the club over the last 2-3 years has been shocking. But ultimately he's the one that carries the can for that, and he has to pay the price for it. But the recruitment, I mean, you go back to the season, they finished third and second. You look at someone like Martial, Rashford, Greenwood. They had a season where they scored over 60 goals between them. And United had big problems further back the pitch, and all they've really done is brought in Sanchez, Cavani, Ronaldo, and they haven't fixed the problems further back in terms of the recruitment. So he carries the can. That's the job as a manager. The team reflects you. They were absolutely awful yesterday. There was no heart, there was no spirit. I think they won't analyse the game too much now over the next few days. They'll analyse the next manager and where Solskjaer failed. But when you look at the third goal, for argument's sake, the ball came to Martial. He just gave it away and just stopped and walked. And United were punished and went 3-1 down. That says it all for me. But that's where I think he's made some mistakes himself. Like bringing on Martial at half-time made no sense. He looked like he'd given up because he's been left out of the team, and he hasn't been able to play the football he needed. So it's quite a mixture. I understand where the manager feels a little bit hard done by in terms of the recruitment and the way the club is being run, but ultimately he has to pay the price for those results.
And when you look at the players that they do have and the talent at their disposal, albeit a somewhat lopsided squad, does a new manager come in and give the sort of bounce that Solskjaer gave when he came in? Does a new manager turn that around, or do you look at, say, the attitude of a Bruno Fernandes, whose form has just dipped for club and country dramatically over the past 6 months, of what Harry Maguire's doing? Do you think a new manager fixes all that?
No, I don't think so. I think you can fix it short term, and you can definitely get a boost. But ultimately, I think United have had problems in around the back four and the number 6 or the defensive midfield position. It's going to cost a lot of money to fix that over time. There's no doubt. I've watched Ronaldo live against Ireland, for argument's sake. There's no doubt that he's a special player, but he's left them in no man's land in terms of what they are. They're not a counter-attacking team, and they're not a high-press team, so they're in no man's land because of that. And he's been brilliant for them in terms of the late goals. So they're in no man's land. They need a strong manager, I think, to come in there and re-galvanise that team. And ultimately, I can see part of what happened at Rodgers at Liverpool, and the same thing. He took Liverpool only so far. Didn't have the sparkle of stardust to get them over the line, and it looks like it's the same thing as happened to Solskjaer. So I think they need another manager now to reinvent them. So it's going to be it's a difficult position to be in, but it's the only way is up for them. So maybe it will excite some people.
The difference is obvious that Liverpool had Jurgen Klopp ready to go when Brendan Rodgers went. Manchester United just seems to be a complete basket case behind the scenes now. The talk today is that they started looking around after the 5-0 against Liverpool a month ago and haven't been able to come up with anybody either interim or full-time. And we're going to have a situation where Michael Carrick will take charge for Villarreal, maybe a couple of weeks. Then perhaps another manager will come in as the interim manager till the end of the season, perhaps a Laurent Blanc, again, somebody who played for Manchester United, before they wait till the summer in the hope that maybe Maurizio Pochettino might be fired as Paris Saint-Germain manager if they don't win the Champions League. It does feel as though the anger that was there towards the Glazers around the time of the Super League, you wouldn't be at all surprised to see that really come back, and a huge amount of heat to be around Old Trafford over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think if they haven't got a plan and reports are to be believed, that would be shocking, because this is not a shock that Solskjaer's lost his job. It could have happened over the last month or two. Most average clubs have made a plan for something that's ahead of them. Even if Solskjaer had won a few games, you still reach out to people, you speak to their agents and see what's happening. For me, look, at the moment I see Zidane as a huge possibility. I think I know there's a language barrier there, but someone who's done it at the highest level, somebody who would get the respect off the players as soon as he walked into the dressing room. People will say different things about him. I thought tactically he outfoxed Jurgen Klopp in the Champions League game over there, in terms of he exploited Trent Alexander. Was really good tactically. People question his tactics. He went in, he won 3 Champions League in a row. Then he went back to the club a couple of years later and won a league title in a different way with not as many good players. So he's the standout candidate. He's not working at the moment, so that makes no sense that he's not on the next flight to Manchester. Then beyond that, there's lots of different things. Listen, if there was a manager that he really wanted at another club, Man United have the money to pay to buy him out. It's peanuts what would be needed. Even if it went to 15-20 million to buy someone out, that's nothing for a club of the size of Manchester United. So they have to put a new permanent manager in place, and they shouldn't be flapping around with that decision till the end of the season. If they do, they deserve all the criticism they get, because that would be so uninformed and underprepared that it's not good enough at that level.
To switch focus to another manager, you. Season is over.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Look, the season's just over, so it's switch off time. It was a really difficult couple of months, but it was probably the best 4 or 5 months I've ever had in my career, in one sense, and at times the worst. But it's been brilliant. I'm delighted I went back. I probably feel personally that I achieved more in those 4 or 5 months than I did in my other 9 years at the club where we had success. Why? Because it was such a difficult environment. When I took over, the club was heading towards a relegation playoff. There was real disharmony in and around the club. There was no connection with the supporters, and we ultimately got that back. We had an amazing run in the summer, proved how good them players were. Their performance in Europe was outstanding, and we finished the season together with the supporters. I think the supporters in Dundalk have been brilliant. So for that point of view, it has been a brilliant couple of months. New owners have come in. The owners of the club owed me a favour in one sense, because they asked me to come back. I turned the job down, and then a couple of weeks later they had a bad result against Waterford. I went into it. I've spoken to them over the last couple of weeks about doing the right thing by the club, and hopefully I played a small part in the decision of putting it back into local hands. So I've done everything in my power I can for that club. I've showed huge loyalty to it. So in time, the new owners have a lot to sort out. There's a lot of skeletons in the cupboard, I presume, that they've to sort through, and we've sat down and we'll have another couple of discussions over the next couple of days and see where that ends up. But ultimately, if it's the end, I'm really proud of what I've done in them 8.5, 9 years together with some amazing players who it is the end for. And if it's not, I'll be ready. I've done all the work. I know where the next Patrick McElhenney, Michael Duffy, Robbie Benson's are, if I'm needed to do that. So that will sort itself out in time.
You want to stay?
No, I want to be involved in football. I love it. I have a real passion for it. I'll go and watch City and Paris Saint-Germain this week and see is there anything I can learn. You can always learn. We've watched another game today. I was at Bray and Galway earlier on in the week. I'll watch football wherever it be. So, yeah, you want to be involved in it. But look, I've got a family. I've got a life. All of them things outside of football that doesn't play out in the public eye that I have to concentrate on. So I'll make the right decision by me. In conjunction with the club, and it'll sort itself out in time.
What was it like on Friday night and end of season? Strange one where it's up against Derry, where so many of the players are going to. What was the conversation like around the dressing room as to what's next?
It was definitely a tough week. It was a tough week. Like a lot of these players have achieved so much with. Like ultimately, you've got to remember that the Ireland senior international manager came out of that dressing room. Jamie McGrath, Darrell Horgan. So many of our lives changed over that last 8 or 9 year period with all the success we had, and I was there for it all. Like fellas, almost like their big brother, was there of someone to rely on, and that's the last time I've sort of been in a dressing room with Michael Duffy, Patrick McElhenney, and there will be others we know that will leave as well. So that's tough to take. It was really emotional, very, very difficult, and I would have loved them to have that cup final next week. I think the players deserved it, and we ultimately fell short in the semi-final. So it was tough the way it ended, but at the same time, there's been that much harmony and togetherness in the group over the last sort of couple of months. It sort of was pretty special in the end, the way it finished. So a lot of good times come the end. So really sad. We lost some good people.
It's obviously a good thing now that Peak Six are gone and it's back in local ownership. In a way, is it the end of, and maybe it wasn't a dream, maybe people were getting too excited when Dundalk were getting qualification for the Europa League and all the money that was involved. There was always a sense that maybe this is the moment an Irish club steps up to the very next level and can compete in Europe on a regular basis. Are Dundalk in a position now where they need to reset ambitions again?
Yeah, I think they do. I think I think the fans will understand that they need to rebuild. It takes time. Like maybe wasn't that long ago I played for Shamrock Rovers in the first division. They're now top of the tree and they have everything going the way. Brand new stadium, new training ground, big investor to help them along the way. So football in Ireland is fickle like that, and the good thing is when you fall down off your pedestal, it's not that far back to climb to the top again. So with a good investment and proper decisions, Dundalk aren't that far back off where they need to be back into Champions League or European football. It's not an unachievable goal, so that's an advantage. But yeah, they need to reset and build it slowly, but build it the right way. And ultimately, look, Peak Six have gone. Remember, they won a double. They won three of the 4 trophies the following year. They've had a group stage Europa League, another FAI Cup, and ultimately they made some poor decisions and they've been punished for them in terms of their standing in the town. But as a club, we've had an amazing 8.5, 9 years of success, as I keep saying, and they just have to rebuild. It's not easy, but they have to rebuild.
So much of football now is around the manager. Every conversation around every club is built around the manager, and same with the country. I don't think we've spoken to you since maybe the win against Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Stephen Kenny's contract, it obviously runs till the end of the Nations League, so he does have 4 more Nations League matches, maybe a couple of friendlies in there as well. But there's a sense that the FAI need to act now because of, I guess, the nonsense that surrounds the position at times, and actually giving everybody just assuredness that actually we back Stephen Kenny. Packy Bonner was out during the week, is one of the kingmakers, seemed quite non-committal. What's your sense on what should happen? Do the FAI need to go and make that contract offer, or would everybody be happy just to wait until June and see what happens?
No, I don't think we can wait much longer. I think players, and it's different in international level because it's different in club level, but at the same time you need that security. I think one of the moments that happened for me in the Portugal game when the sending off happened, I think if a manager was confident in his position, had a long-term contract, I think he might have brought on a forward straight away and went for it. With the risk he might concede a goal, I think maybe Stephen's mindset was like, this is a good result for me, a draw against Portugal. So I think there's loads of little moments like that where you can breed confidence in a manager by giving him a long-term contract. I think most of the football community are behind him. They see what's worked. How terrible would it be that if we develop all of these young players? We've probably brought 70 to 80 caps into people aged sort of 24 and under. We've redeveloped the squad. The staff have put together a real tactical awareness into the team. I think the hardest part now is the final third. That's going to be the most difficult. We need goals from somewhere, and that will play itself out. But look, people will say, well, you would say that, but it's difficult to speak about someone who's effectively a personal friend. But it makes no sense that I think he's done enough to earn that new contract. But it is a results business, and he'll be under a bit of pressure. He needs to get results and win games of football. But
it's an interesting point, though, you make about the substitution in Portugal, because that's the scenario that could play out in the Nations League, where Stephen Kenny's been quite bullish of saying he wants to win the group. We don't know who's in the group. Could actually be quite a difficult group if Sweden and Russia in there. You don't want to be in a position where you're halfway through that group thinking, I need to make sure I don't lose these games, rather than actually going trying to win them. Yeah,
and it's no different than I've been a manager. Say you're 2-0 down. and you're thinking, well, I don't want to get beaten by 3 or 4 here just in case. But you should really be thinking, I'm going to bring on a forward and get back into the game. So it's all little moments like that. The way you speak to players, the way they respect you. If the players think, well, he mightn't be the manager in a few weeks' time, so I've got a little niggle, I'm not going to turn up. All little moments that add to a bigger part of the picture. And I think it's important that the whole FEI, look, we need a football community in this country. We need it. We didn't always need it, to be fair. But we do need it now. We've only to see our goalkeepers come from Shamrock Rovers, and the Stevens came from Shamrock, Jamie McGrath, Dundalk, and Chidozie came through Limerick and Cork, and there's probably another 10 of those examples. So we need that. Stephen gets it. He has developed a lot of good young players, and you just need to just give him a new contract now before Christmas and get rid of all the noise and go from there. And if he fails and doesn't do well, then he should be replaced as well. But as it currently stands, he's done enough, in my view, to get a new contract.
Cheers, Vinny.
Cheers, thank you.